We don't see the world as it is. We see the world as we are. So your internal framework really matters. And there are some books that will impact your internal framework so deeply that it'll completely change the way you not only perceive yourself, but the world around you forever. So in this video, I want to go over 9 underrated books that have profoundly impacted my internal framework and helped me cultivate the mindset of a higher status individual. And I hope these books do the same for you as well. Book number 1 is Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl. So sometimes when you're just having brain rot with the boys and you're like, dude, what's the meaning of life? What's the purpose? Why are we even here? Or you may have even thought that to yourself as like a genuine question. Like, what is the meaning of life? What's our purpose? What's our existence? Read this book and you will have to look no further on understanding all that. I mean, not only will this book teach you about what is the purpose and meaning of life, but it'll tell you and show you how to overcome obstacles when they're totally insurmountable, that you can get through them and live an incredible life after that too. Don't first of all make the same mistake I did, which was reading this on the beach. This is not a vacation book. I was reading this sipping pina coladas. This is not the book for that. It's actually a really tough read. It's a really heart-wrenching read because it's about Viktor Frankl, who survived the Holocaust. And once everything is taken away from you and the atrocities of human life, and when you literally have almost no will to live, what is the meaning of life? Why should I keep going? What is the purpose to continue existing? And he finds that, and he talks about that in the depths of some of the worst things that humanity's ever faced. And not only did he go through that, he came on the other side of that. He survived the Holocaust. He opens up his practice on logotherapy, which is the foundation right now of cognitive behavioral therapy and psychotherapy, which is one of the biggest ways that we have to help people going through anxiety, depression, and a lot of other mental disorders. So not only did he survive the Holocaust and find meaning in all that bullshit, crazy, fucked up shit that happened to him, but he also is a godfather in psychology and contributed to a large body of work in science that have helped millions of people to this date. One of my biggest takeaways from this book was when Viktor Frankl talks about how everything can be stripped away from him. His family was taken away from him. Forget his money, his house, all that shit. Of course, all that was taken away from him. So every single aspect of life was taken away from him. He didn't have control over his life. He couldn't decide where to even shit or piss. He had their clothes were taken from him. Everything was taken from him. His ability to even feel feelings at some point was taken away from him, right? Every single aspect of his life was taken away from him. Food, control, everything. But in that moment, he discovered what is last of man's freedom, something that cannot be truly taken away from any single individual. And this is what it is. Stimulus can happen to us, meaning things happen to us, and we automatically always react, right? You get cut off in traffic, you react. You're hungry, you go eat. That is how life usually lives for us humans. What he realized is that in between stimulus and response, there's a gap. There's a gap of how you want to react in any given situation. You, as an individual, as a human, can choose how to react, which was a pretty profound thing for me for a moment, because I never thought about life and decision-making that way. I know it's good to take time to think about things, but I never thought about freedom and choosing to actually understand how to make use of that gap between stimulus and response. And that was a really profound thing for me at the time, because especially someone who was growing up, I was trying to find my meaning and purpose in life. I realized that I don't have to be emotional. I don't have to be immediately to react to my impulses. I can choose to take a break and breathe and really understand how I want to respond to this. And that's the thing he talks about. People would berate him. They would do crazy shit to him. He, in those situations itself, could choose how he wanted to respond. He didn't have to respond as others did. He could choose to find ways to respond in a way that was productive and conducive to what he needed to do in order to live and survive. And here's the thing, high status individual people know that once you align yourself with a purpose or meaning in life and everything you do, you walk and move through life with unparalleled confidence. There's an energy that's infectious that people can just feel off of you, especially in this robotic, aimless world where people are busy being busy. They go clock in their jobs. They're just mindlessly operating on autopilot all this time. But when you meet someone who's driven, who's purposeful, who knows what their purpose and intent is on life, it's a really different feeling. And one of the core traits about being high status is that no matter what happens to them, no matter what the bad obstacles, failures, all the shit and crap that gets thrown at them, they still able to take responsibility for every single worst problem that they've ever had in their life and then own that responsibility. They never blame others, they never force others. Instead of just wallowing in your own self-pity, they take responsibility and they find ways to take action and to respond to terrible stimulus in a way that is good for them and enables them to live a higher quality life. So that's such a huge trait of being a high status individual that I didn't realize translated into my life until after reading this book. And it really fundamentally shifted, not just from a gratitude perspective, but the way I just move through life. Like every day I leave the door, I walk with purpose because I understand what it really means to be here today. And it's a gift and it's a blessing. Book number 2 is Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind by Yuval Noah Harari. I freaking loved this book, dude. I loved this book. I'm someone who likes to know the why behind a lot of things. For example, even I'll watch like an Avengers movie or something and I'll read on Wikipedia how they made it. This is like how, like the why or the Wikipedia behind every single thing that exists in real life. There's this quote that I love. I forgot who said it, but it goes along something like this. Those who do not read the history of what came before you go through life as a child does. And that quote is really profound because it makes you think about the education, that we don't really focus on history on a lot of things, right? And it's so true. There's been thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of things that have happened in history, and we really need to learn from them. We should be standing on the shoulders of giants. We should learn about how it is why we got there and how society functions the way it does. Almost understand the sociology, psychology, anthropology, all the things. And this book does it all. I mean, anything you've ever thought of, bro, this book answers it. How we got here, how we have technology. Why do we wear jeans instead of other types of material? Why do dogs love us and we love dogs? Why do we use paper currency? Of course, it goes over the history, the wars, it goes over religion. Like every single thing you can ever think of any question you've ever had about anything, this book answers it. I mean, there is a reason why some of the most prolific inventors and scientists and entrepreneurs, they all obsess over history. They're all passionate enthusiasts and devour history voraciously. And it is interesting to read. I mean, there are moments of this book that you might have to slog through, but every single aspect is a golden nugget of insight into just like that's the reason why. That's the reason why we sleep so much. That's the reason why this happened. That's the reason why this happened. So there's almost like these millions of invisible forces that are shaped into how life is lived today. And suddenly this pulls the curtains behind, pulls the kimono behind what's going on behind the scenes thousands of years ago. And one small thing, the butterfly effect, led to what it is today. And the amazing thing about history, which is why a lot of these highly successful people love reading it, is that there's patterns in history. There's lessons to be learned from history. And using those patterns, you can almost decipher the future of where we're going. There's this book by Ray Dalio, I forgot the exact name of it, but it goes over just the lessons in history and how they've repeated themselves like n number of times. So there is a lot to be said about being a student of history, and this is a very easy introduction to it. And yeah, I'm just a curious guy, man. Like, I'm just gonna open to a random page. Conveyor belt, like why the fuck do we use that and how that's impacted everything? Retirement, and then yeah, he just talks about the end of civilization and gets into the futuristic, AI, crypto, that kind of shit, which I'm always fan of, just being a futurist about those things. But yeah, dude, Sapiens is definitely a must-have because, once again, high status people, what do you talk about at dinner parties? What do you talk about like at any of these events? You're not talking about like your job. You always talk about things that are more interesting, and what makes you a more interesting human is being able to engage conversations from a concept of not walking through life like a child. Book number 3 is The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari by Robin Sharma. Man, first of all, what a freaking title, The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. Like, it always makes you curious, right? This book came to me at a very special time, which is why I think I placed it so high on this list. But I was going through a lot of mental health struggles at this point, and I didn't know what was going on, why it was happening. And I remember, you know, I was talking to my mom, and I was just venting about all the things that was going on, and she hands me this book, and she's like, this is probably a really good time for you to read this. And to get the gist of what the book is about, it's basically about this high-powered lawyer who is crushing it successfully on the outside. Internally, he's struggling, and one day he, I think, has a heart attack during a court case, and that makes him rethink everything, gives away his possessions, and goes live with the monks and learns from them on what it means to be happy and fulfilled and live a great life. Here's the thing that I really took away from this book, man, and I think why it contributes to being a high-status individual. When media portrays high status, It shows the cars, the girls, the yachts, the bank balance, the suits, the ties, it shows the opulence of wealth from an external perspective, right? High status doesn't come from finding validation in external things. It comes from within. You can be very poor, but still be very high status. And you can be really rich and be very insecure. If you draw your validation, your net worth from old external things, you will forever be low status. That's really what it comes down to. You're an insecure man. I don't care if you have a Rolex on your wrist. You can just see through someone's eyes, the shallowness, that everything that they've used to support them around themselves externally, because internally they're crushing. So this book is a journey as a reader to understand how to fix the internal so that you can see the effects of it externally. Because your internal, like we said in the beginning of this video, is so important. And if this is in disarray, you'll never be happy externally. And I think that's the reason why at that time I was going through a lot of mental health struggles and a few other things, is because my internal was in such a disarray that my external was just replicating that. It was just a parallel of that mask that I was putting in front, but underneath the mask, I was seeing what I was supposed to see. So the book gives you actionable steps. It doesn't just say fluffy, like, oh, you should think this way. No, it teaches you how to get this in check, right? So how to be a disciplined person, how to create habits and stick by them. It shows you how to live being more present, how to be a happier individual, how to progress in life, how to set goals and stick to them. Like how to find a goal that drives you and how to pursue that, and then how to challenge obstacles and failures and overcome them. Like, it literally is a manual on understanding how to fix all the shit components inside yourself so that it can come outside externally. And yeah, if you're someone who's going through that right now, I think that will really help you as well, because it helped me for sure. But in order to be high status, the fundamental law is it comes within. It doesn't come from without. So all the influencers and gurus you see online who are showing their wealth and talking about high status to you, they're doing it the wrong way, and you're being attracted with honey like bees the wrong way. You should be finding and seeking sources of truth for people who talk about how to fix it here, and in your soul. Because that is the true way to be high status. And when you shake someone's hand, when you talk to them, they have a different level of depth to them, that energy that you just feed off of, that you know they're a high status person. And it doesn't coming from something shallow like their new Lamborghini. And that's what it's really all about. Book number 4 is probably one you expect on this list if you're a big reader, and that is 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene. Where to start with this book? First of all, 48 Laws of Power, the title itself, you knew this book's gonna, like, of course it's gonna make this list. This book is highly controversial because it literally uses dark manipulation tactics sometimes in some of these laws in order to get ahead and move across others and up in the world, the social hierarchy, I mean, this book is literally the textbook manual on just social status, winning in life, and using others to get ahead in life. And it's so controversial because it's so good at this that many jails have banned this book and many schools have banned this book. But there's a lot of places this book you can't even buy it because it's just so freaking like impactful, knowledgeable. But the tactics in this really do work. Now, here's the thing. I'm not by any means telling you that that high status means you're an unethical person or that you move up by putting others down. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you should read this for education because it shows you the way the world really works. And there are tactics in this where it does show you, like, how to get people to be dependent on you, how to get others to do the work, and then you take the credit for it. There are ones that go even deeper into that. So even if you're hesitant to read this book, I recommend it because each law, the way he writes it is not that you have to use it, but he also talks about if someone's using it against you, what to do. That's the most important part of it, because whether you like it or not, there are going to be people who are using laws of power, the invisible scripts of the world, against you. And you may be just being taken for a ride. But this will show you what to do in case, or at least be privy to it and understand it and see through the matrix of how it works and then use it for yourself. And that's the way I like to describe this book, right? There's like, you know, like the movie The Matrix, where you just see normal stuff, right? But Neo is able to see past the normal and see the ones and zeros that make up what it is really behind the scenes. That's what this book is. When I finished this book, I just started to see parallels in daily life, like either whether it's in politics or in business or in news or my day-to-day job or in relationships with friends or partners or whatever that is. you start to see almost that people don't realize what they're doing even half the time, but one of the laws is in effect. So now that you are equipped with the knowledge, it's almost like getting the manual to understanding social situations and strategy, you're able to play the game. Right now, you don't even know what you're playing. You're like a caveman with fire, and you're like, holy shit, what is this fire? What can I do with it? Suddenly, after reading this book, you become really grounded, and as a high status individual, you play the game. And here's the thing, you say, Sid, I want to opt out, I don't want to play the game. You're in the game regardless whether you like it or not. Either you're a piece on the puzzle and you're on a checkers board while others playing chess, or you're a king, queen, or at least you're a rook or knight, and you know how you're moving, and you know how to move in a way that puts you in a better position to succeed. So, yeah, 48 Laws of Power, man. It's a thick boy, but it's a great read, and one that I think will serve you really well in any aspect of life. Book number 5 is the Bhagavad Gita. If you haven't heard the Bhagavad Gita, it's a very important literature in Hinduism, and you don't have to be religious to read it. It's not like the Bible where it's like a sort of a manifesto of what to do if you follow or ascribe to a certain religion. A lot of people have read it. I mean, guys like Will Smith and Tony Robbins and people who follow other faiths talk about the Bhagavad Gita a lot because it's almost a manual for how to live life. It's a discussion about philosophy in a much greater expansive way. And it was, I mean, you can choose to believe it or not, but written thousands of years ago. So there's this, so the way the story's written is there's a battle going on between, it's like a family battle between like two powerful houses essentially, right? And there's the evil house, the good house, and the good house, there's an archer. His name is Arjun. He's a master at his craft. He's really good at what he does, but at the same time, he's killing his family members to win this war. So it's a little it's like a tough idea for him to do. And there's many moments he doesn't want to do it. The guy who's riding his chariot is Krishna, and Krishna is God. That's what he actually proclaims himself. So once again, choose to believe it or not, I think it's a very important exercise to read this book because once again, all the questions you've had, Arjun kind of just asks Krishna. He's like, why am I even doing this? Like, what's the point of this? What's the meaning to a fulfilled and happy life? Why is there good and evil in this world? All the kind of just random questions that we ask ourselves and other people and never get an answer for, he asks them, and he gets a great answer to many of them. So you know when you get a new camera or a laptop or something, you get a CPU manual, a quick start guide to learn how to use it and not to use it. The way people describe this book is that when you're born, this is the most important thing we use every day, and there's no CPU textbook manual on how to use and operate this machine that we call it being a human being. And this kind of gives you the framework for that. And here's how it translates to being higher status, right? A lot of the questions he asks in this book are so profound, and the answer is so simple, and it makes you think in a way that you're like, huh, why didn't I just think of that before? For example, one of the things Arjun says is like, hey, I don't want to do this. Like, if the whole point of life is to just, I don't know, be a good human being, then why don't I just quit this archery shit and just go into the forest and meditate and essentially just become a monk? Like, if that's the whole point, like the whole point of life is to be a good person or just be nice to others or whatever, why don't I just go do that or just do that? And Christian says no. Honestly, if you do that, you're first of all, if there is a heaven or hell, you're probably not going to end up in one of the good ones, because the whole point of life is you have to play the game you're currently playing, which is to follow your dharma. Your dharma is your passion, your purpose. And the way I like to translate that is whatever you're supposed to be doing right now. Like, let's say you're a student, your dharma is to be a student. Let's say you're an engineer. Let's say you're a father. Let's say you're a brother. Your dharma is what you're supposed to be doing, or what you are right now, or aligned to your greater purpose in a sense, but that's your role you're playing, right? So Christian says that it's easy to just give up and just go to the forest. That's called giving up. That's actually a bad thing. If like being someone to have something worth giving up, that's a whole different story. But if you're like, hey, this is tough or whatever, I'm gonna drop this and leave and exit society, that's not the way the game works. And I think that's a really important aspect, especially in becoming a higher status individual, right? Like he says you have to win at the game you're playing. And if you align yourself with your greater purpose, your dharma, then you're never going to do a wrong misstep. If you're trying to be the best student you can possibly be, and you put all your action and focus into that, Then once you achieve that, then sure, you can do whatever you want. But he says you have to win at the game of life first. And then you can win at the game of everything else. Because it's easy to say I'm just gonna quit, right? But you have to win first to choose to quit. Does that kind of make sense? It might take some more interpreting and reading to understand that, but one of the core concepts of the Bhagavad Gita is something called Karma Yoga, which is doing action without any expectation of return. And this is a key concept that like even guys like Alex Tomosi and stuff have been talking about, where they don't realize that that's the real concept they're saying, where it's playing the long game, doing the action without any expectation of return, just creating video after video, doing business after business, failing, but doing it over and over and over again without any expectation. That is how you win at the game of life in pretty much everything. If you're able to just perform and in line with your dharma, which is your overall life purpose, which is what we were talking about earlier, and you do every action without any expectation of return. I'm creating this video. I don't care if I get any views on it. You study as hard as you can and you try to get an A, but it doesn't matter if you don't get an A or not. Like, it's almost like controlling what you can by just the input that you're putting, and whatever output happens, you don't care. It's really tough to practice because we are ego-driven individuals, and we always like, oh, what's the point of even doing anything if you don't get anything from it, right? But that is one really interesting way. And he just says enjoy and engage with the Leela of life, which is just play. Just play with life by following your dharma and doing actions without any expectation of return. And if you do all that, then you're gonna live an incredible life. That's the whole book summed into one sentence, but that's pretty much what it is. And in some ways, that is kind of the definition of being higher status. Engaging with the play of life, doing action without any expectation of return, and following your purpose so strongly that nothing happens and you win at that first before you try doing anything else in life. And that aspect, that energy, that mindset that you get when you meet someone is so freaking infectious. If you meet someone who is so in line with to their greater purpose and doing things because they just want to do them and play without actually doing anything in return. They actually give you and want to get lunch with you, not to get anything out of it. They do the work because they just want to do really good work, not because they want to get any appreciation from their boss or a raise. That is such a magnificent, powerful way to live life that I can guarantee you anyone else will just suddenly like your status will immensely be just fucking crashing and skyrocketing through the ceiling, because the second you start playing life that way, the whole external world changes around for you. Once again, easier said than done, but it's a great manual for doing that. And there's a reason why some of the most prolific people you've known, I mean, Steve Jobs, like all the guys you think of, constantly reference the Bhagavad Gita, because it's just a really great explanation on how to use the CPU, the textbook, the guide, the manual on how to operate this and go through life in a way that is just absolutely incredible. Book number 6 is Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. You might be surprised to find this book on this list, but here's one thing I'll say about it. There's no point of being higher status if you're dead or if you're constantly going to the hospital because you're so sick. This book, if anything, out of all the books I've read, this book added the most years to my life. I didn't realize how crucial and important sleep was. And here's the thing I'll tell you about being high status too. You can be the most high status individual with mindset and everything, but if you're getting like 4 or 5 nights in a row of bad sleep, you ain't high status no more. Your health is one of the most fundamental cornerstones and most important things in order to be high status. Everything starts, once again, from within. Not just within from a mindset level, but from a biological, cellular level. And sleep is the pillar of all that. One of the things I've realized when I read this book, and Matthew Walker talks about this, is that we constantly think about like the pillars of good life is like diet, nutrition, exercise, all that. And sleep, we always say, is one of the other pillars. No, we got that wrong. All the other pillars sit on top of sleep. Like sleep is the denominator and everything else impacts it. For example, if you're getting bad sleep, you ain't working out, bro. Your diet's messed up. Your hormones are all over the place. I mean, there's this amazing, this is what I mean by it. Like, there's this amazing phrase in this book, and let me pull it up quickly for you. And I love it when authors do this, but it'll make sense in a second. So Matthew Walker presents an advertisement, right? And this is what it says. Amazing breakthrough. Scientists have discovered a revolutionary new treatment that makes you live longer, enhances your memory, makes you more creative, it makes you look more attractive, it keeps you slim, lowers food cravings, it protects you from cancer and dementia, it wards off colds, flu, and sickness, it lowers your risks of heart attacks and stroke, not to mention diabetes. You'll feel happier, less depressed, less anxious, and statistically more wealthier. Are you interested? Of course, bro. Like, who the fuck is, like, it's like a stupid question. Like, who wouldn't want that, right? And the crazy thing is, he says, well, right after that, it's like, while this may be hyperbolic, nothing about this fictitious advertisement is inaccurate. If this was a new drug, people would always be going crazy about it. It's literally called sleep. more than 8-9 hours or whatever your body needs. And he goes through it in detail. How much sleep do you need? How to get sleep? What caffeine does? All the crazy random statistics where they have billions of individual studies. Like, these studies are like mind-blowing. You wouldn't be arguing about freaking if keto diet's better than carnivore diet and all this shit if you saw the number of studies that sleep has. Muscle building, weight, like every single cornerstone of your entire fucking being, man. Mental health. Do you know the number of mental health illnesses that just stem from people getting low, bad quality sleep? You may be even in bed for 8 to 9 hours, but not even realizing that your sleep is bad quality. So even though you're in bed for 9 hours, you are struggling and suffering. Like, dude, I didn't realize how powerful sleep was. And then learning about myself and my mind and my ability, I've hyper prioritized sleep. It's my number one self-care habit. If I'm not feeling right, I don't go to my diet or exercise. I go immediately back and I'm like, how much more do I need to sleep? What was my sleep like? I have like sleep, I have the Aura Ring, I have the 8 sleep mattress. I have like all these things now which help me track my sleep because this has become such a great important thing. And like I said earlier, man, your health is the number one predictor of the way you're gonna move through life as well. And you ain't gonna be high status for long if your health is constantly suffering. And if you're not sleeping much, this book will tell you how to not only solve it, but also show you the underbelly of bad sleep. We live in this grind, hustle mentality culture with guys like Gary Vee, David Goggins, and a bunch of other people. And I'm not saying what they're teaching is bad. I'm sure it works for them, but you shouldn't be listening to them when they say you should only get 4 hours of sleep and grind and hustle and eat fucking glass. Nah, dude, that's not the way, like, that's not how it's supposed to work. Like, that's not what any high status person, individual is doing. I can guarantee you that. Sleep is a priority. It's the fundamental cornerstone of health. It'll change everything. It'll make you more creative. It'll make you more wealthy. It'll make you more everything, man. Just this book, if anything, will add at least 10 years to your life because that is how sleep deprived and caffeinated and obese and everything we are as a society. And it'll show you everything about this. Book number 7 is The Alchemist by Paulo Coelho. This is one of the most famous fiction books that I've come across. I mean, it's translated, I think, to 56 different languages, which is a Guinness World Record, by the way, for the most number of languages a book's been translated into. Bill Clinton, Will Smith, Oprah Winfrey, the list is insane. They all say this is their number one book. This is the number one book they recommend. And best part about this book, bro, you can read it within like 3 days. It's like so small, it's so short, it's under 150 pages, and it's a storybook. It's not even one of these dry self-help fiction books that, I mean, I talk about Monk Who Sold Ferrari, that's a fiction book, but this is just a pure fiction book. So why is the president of the United States walking around holding this and reading this? Why are billionaires and millionaires all raving about this? It's because of a story's ability to motivate and inspire you. Here's the thing about humans as individuals, right? Numbers and statistics and facts don't motivate us to change as much as stories do. We're story narrative driven beings. So when we see a movie like Rocky or Rudy or an inspirational story on the big screen, it wants us to, even though we don't know why, we want to get up the next day and run and work out, right? Same way about this, but it shows you how to follow and chase your dreams. The best part about a high status individual is they understand how to follow their dreams like it's no one's business, but more importantly, learn how to listen to their heart. And this book is about a boy, and I don't want to spoil this book, so I'm not going to say too much, but it shows you how to actually listen to your heart. You know when people say, what does your gut say? It kind of shows you how to actually listen to your gut. It shows you if you're on the right path. It shows you how to dream big. One of the biggest reasons people say that they're like from a scientific level, why scientists and researchers say that others are not successful or rich or whatever the position they want to be, is because we think like this. We think like small little human beings. Elon Musk wakes up one day and is like, I'm gonna build a rocket ship and go to Mars, and he fucking does it. He's not doing it because, sure, there's a lot of other things he has in place now, but the thing that helped him do in the first place was his ability to think big, the ability to create mountains in his mind and then go execute on them. And that's what this book does. Like if you want and you're stuck in a rut and you don't know why you don't feel like 100% and you feel like a small, insignificant, worthless piece of shit just in your life, like you just feel like you're a fucking loser, right? This book will once again bring you back to the mindset where it's like, it brings color back to your life. And it's like, holy shit, like I can dream this big. I can be this human being. I can create a path. I can learn how to listen to my heart. It shows you how to be more creative. The story is so inspirational and motivational that anything you want to do, first of all, you may not even know what you want to do. It shows you how to find what it is and to think that big and then to go chase after your dreams like it's nobody else's business. And there's a fun ending to this book too that I don't want to spoil, but you'll realize that once you read this, and you will understand why a lot of people love this book so much. It's a fable, not a story. It's a fable. There's a story. There's an underlying meaning to why we're reading what we're reading, and I think you're just gonna enjoy this one. This is just one of those books you can knock out in a weekend, and yeah, it's just a good, almost like a shot of like caffeine or something to get you back on the path, but also just have you think at a higher level. Like if you're here, it'll take you up here, and that'll change everything, and not just business, health, wealth, love, relationships, but you'll realize that your destiny is the only obligation to yourself. It all makes sense in a second. It'll all click once you read this book. Book number 8 is The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. And I actually have the leather-bound edition, so yours may look a little different. But the cool thing about my edition is that Ryan Holiday actually signed it out to me. He says, make time for philosophy. That's what he wrote down here. I'm a big fan for like signed books in general. I have a lot of books that I've gotten signed over the years. A lot of them mainly fiction. So I have like Aragon signed, Brandon Sanderson signed his Way of Kings for me. Either way, I digress. The Daily Stoic. If you've been around the personal development blog, you've been on social media, unless you've been living under a rock, you probably heard of Stoicism by now. It's like the biggest trend. Gen Z freaking loves talking about Stoicism too. And for the right reasons. Stoicism is immensely impactful. The ideas in it are truly life-changing if you understand them. The problem with Stoicism though, is that it's really hard to understand it sometimes because it's so, what's the word? Not philosophical, but it's not unrelatable because we live in such a different time and era. But what I love about this book is that each single page is kind of like just like, for example, April 7th. It just has like a kind of a quote and then Ryan Holiday's interpretation of it, which I think is such a great way to read this book. So he'll basically like say something like a Stoic mindset idea. He basically distilled all of Stoicism into 365 like quotes, and then each single day he brings up one of those quotes, and almost like Ryan Holiday's like riffing on it and making it modern and interpreting and explaining that quote. And it takes like literally less than 3 minutes to read every single morning. It's a great way to set the day because I can guarantee you every single high status person is at some level of Stoic. Like I can guarantee you, like they may not know it, but the philosophies and ideas of Stoicism are so inherently powerful and such a driving force behind so many successful people that, especially when it comes to being a high status individual, you're a fucking Stoic, bro. Just you are. That's just it is. You are. Because the main component of Stoicism is understanding how to control the controllables and learning, kind of like how I talked earlier about the book, but it's the CPU for your like life. This is the CPU for your mind. Like this is the way your mind should be operating. This is how you have self-talk. This is how you control self-talk. This is how you not give in to impulses. One of my favorite concepts and kind of haunting concepts of philosophy from the Daily Stoic and Stoicism in general is the idea of memento mori. Memento mori is a meditation on death almost, the fact that we're dying soon. The thing is we've become so insulated from death as a society in a first world country that we don't realize that any moment you can die still. And the Stoics often contemplate on death. They tell themselves every single day that in any given moment you can leave this earth. So how does that change the way you think, act, and feel? Would you really get pissed off in traffic at that guy if you knew you could die at any moment? Would you really say that thing to that person? Or if you get into a fight with someone, would you really hold on with that fight, you know? And it really forces you to live in the present because they talk about it in a really weird way sometimes, where it's like when you're tucking, like the Stoics will say, you're tucking in your son at night, you may realize you may not wake up in the morning. And it forces you to be present because it wants you to take in that moment so still. Like when you kiss him, think about that in a way that like you're taking in that moment. You're being there, you're present with that individual. You're giving time to the things that give time. So memento mori is a concept that fundamentally changed the way I approach life oftentimes. It's like, I've started going through life more like a hell yes versus a hell no opportunity. I've become more protective of my time. When I'm with friends, I'm with them. When I'm with my work, I do the best work I can because if I'm about to die, leave tomorrow, it doesn't matter what I'm doing. I want to do something really good and leave a legacy about that. Even if it is my job or whatever that is at the moment, I want to do a good job at it. And yeah, so there's just a lot of principles in the Daily Stoic that every single day will remind you and bring that, and will, you know how we talk about the internal framework? It sets your internal framework for that day, and it's a great fucking internal framework to have for that day. if you're a stoic, nothing can ever fucking unfaze you. You can have a bad day and still persevere and find a good way out of that. I mean, there's stories in this where the worst things have happened to people, like their whole house is on fire. And amor fati is a concept where it's like accepting fate so obsessively that everything happens to you for all the good reasons. Like all the things you've talked about, all the things like you've read about that are like how these people think, who you look up to, they all somehow trickle back to stoicism in some way. And that's why I think is a fundamental aspect for the CPU of your mind on how to start asking like life for more and getting more from life, but going through it in a very happy, fulfilling, calm, collected way. And if you want to become a high status individual, you can learn it through the pages of this book way easier than sorting through all of Stoicism philosophy. So that's why I love how Ryan has done it. He's condensed all of the wisdom in this book and a daily meditation to set the stage and tone for that day. And over time, it'll just become ingrained within you as just a principle of life. Book number 9 is Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss. I absolutely adore and love this book. I use this book every day. Like, I genuinely use this book every single day of my life because it's about Chris Voss, who is an FBI high stakes negotiator. He negotiates with like terrorists and hostage situations. These aren't like negotiating your like electricity bill. These are like the highest of high stakes negotiations. When he fails, people die. Like countries are like lost in war. Like crazy shit happens. So he takes those principles of a high stakes negotiation and then brings them down to real life on how you can use them to negotiate for a higher salary raise or how to win an argument against your wife or girlfriend or whatever that is. And it's funny because it's like they freaking work. They really, really, really work. A lot of the books we've been talking about, sure, there are a lot of actionable, concrete steps in some of them, but a lot of them are more about mindset shifts and like mentality shifts and understanding how to the internal framework and all that, right? This literally gives you phrases like say these 6 words, like say these 5 words in this order, ask these 3 questions in this order, and then you'll get a result. We as humans are so predictable sometimes, and that's why I think this book is so interesting. But this book has made me so much more, in terms of a high status individual, confident in my communication ability. When I'm even at a restaurant, or I'm trying to get a reservation, or I'm trying to get in a club and the bouncer says no, or I'm at work and I'm trying to get a presentation pass. Like anytime you come across something, we live in a society where communication is your skill set. Like you need to be a communication ninja if you ever want to succeed in life. You need to be able to talk your way to anyone, through anything, in order to get what you want. And this book gives you the guide to do that, the tools to do that. Like right now in your tool chest, you probably have like a hammer and a nail and 2 things. This pulls out and shows like, hey, by the way, whoop, there's actually 60 other tools down here that you can use in different situations. And there's just small tactics, like for example, it's this idea of called labeling that I use all the time, which is labeling an emotion when someone's talking to you in a way that validates and makes them feel like you're really empathetic. And what that does is that when you give that feeling of empathy to someone, it builds more trust and gives you and that person an ability to have a better and stronger and more productive conversation because you understand that person, or at least they feel like you do. So I just love how it's like literally say this phrase, or like asking how questions in order to get to something. When instead of going and debating with someone, ask how questions. How to find black swan events in conversations. Mirroring is such a powerful technique, and he talks about that. How when you're talking to someone, if you want to establish rapport right away, how to mirror them with their body language and vocal and your way of manner of speaking, so someone immediately likes you and wants to be friends with you and trusts you and wants to get a drink with you. So yeah, man. Never Split the Difference was a book club read of mine that I started when I had a book club, and this is one of my favorite books to look back on because there's so many good things. I read it at least once a year because it always reminds me of certain tactics and tricks that you can use literally in play on day to day to negotiate from things, either like a free donut at Starbucks or like a job, a salary raise, or even some higher stakes if you're in professions where you need things like that. But yep, I absolutely love this one. It's an easy read, it's a fun read, it's fast read, and I think this one will be a quick hack to make you even higher status than you already are. Yeah, and that about wraps up the list, guys. So something I've recently been doing is sharing my book notes publicly with you all on my website. So these are some of the books that have made the most impact in my life, right? I take notes on my books where I distill the entire book into the top 7, 8, 10, whatever key best ideas and my 3 takeaways and some quotes that have really profoundly impacted me. and I started publicizing them and posting them on my website. So a few of these books I do have book notes for. I'll leave them in the link in the description box down below, just so you guys have an extra resource or value. Or if you don't know if you want to buy the book yet, you can read my book notes and my thoughts on them, and then you can go from there. And if you made it this far into the video, I want to say thank you. You're a real one. If you're new here, my name is Sid I. I drop videos like these once a week, whether it's on looks maxing, grooming, productivity, self-improvement. Basically anything to help close that gap between you currently are capable of being a moment to moment, because that's what we're all about. So I got you covered, man, in all angles. And if this kind of content inspires you or resonates with you and you got some value from this video, it means the world to me if you hit that subscribe button down below. Give me one of these thumbs up to help the YouTube algorithm, to let them know that you enjoy this so others may enjoy it as well. And if you want to connect with me further, you can go ahead and follow me on Sid Chavla, where I share a lot more about my personal life and also a lot more content on self-improvement in general. So let me know in the comments down below, what are 3 books that you recommend that have impacted you the most, just so we can all grow together as a community. I'll bloop up 2 videos until then, where if you loved this video, you'll definitely love those as well. And until next time, guys, keep crushing it.